My name is Chase McPherson. I don't remember the name of my first date, so that gives you some idea as to how it went. This is What Do You Want From Me, the podcast all about me but directed by you. You tell me what aspects of my life you want to hear about, and I attempt to entertain you for a short while. By my junior year of high school, I was more or less out to the whole student body, and my beloved grandmother was in a deep state of denial about it. Check previous episodes for details. I set myself a goal. I was going to go on a date before I graduated. Easier said than done. It's not like there was a pool of eligible guys in the hallways of a Texas country high school. But with the help of a good friend, an internet connection, and a series of lies to my legal guardian, I made good on that goal. This is Episode 4, Covert Ops Dating. Of all the friends I could sincerely consider close in high school, Annie was the closest. In the era of Will and Grace, she was the Grace Adler to my Will Truman. We shared in-jokes, deep secrets, and salacious tales of puberty and sexual discovery. Well, to be fair, the last bit was mainly her. Annie was buxom, to put it plainly, and she attracted lots of attention for it from the male of the species. That's why one of our favorite things to do in our Haven of Drama class was high five, low 10. That's where we did a traditional high five with both hands upon hearing good news, but when I said low 10, she would stoop and place her bosoms against my cupped hands. You see, all the guys in drama, except for me of course, wanted to sleep with her. By doing high five, low 10, we could honestly say that the gay guy got further with her than the rest of the class. I was only jealous of Annie in one respect. She got out there and did stuff. She dated. She played the field a bit, just like most girls her age in high school. Me? I didn't have that luxury. I did, however, have the internet, and at that time, two websites, XY and Gay.com, were beacons of hope. Gay.com was more the every-age dating website at the time. XY was focused more on a certain type of teen, the one in gay lingo called the twink. Twinkie, I definitely was not. My waist size ballooned way past twink levels in 3rd grade, but at least I was age appropriate. I began to make friends, or at least chat buddies, the moment the phone cord touched the computer modem. But it was depressing to have to wait through the school day just to get home and spend the night waiting by the inbox. Andrew! Andrew was the name of my first date. I literally just remembered. So anyway, the day I decided to go for it was about a week after starting chatting with Andrew. We exchanged photos, and to my relief, he didn't block me after seeing my face. That's something that happens quite a lot. The first move was his. He asked if I would want to go see a movie or something. I said yes almost immediately, only to be struck with a series of problems which I then laid out for him. I don't drive. I didn't then, I don't now. But he lived in an Austin suburb. I was about an hour out of the way. I asked him if he knew the city of Taylor, which was kind of in between us, and he said he did. My next move was to fire up the old AOL Instant Messenger and see if Annie was online. She was. I asked if she would be my middle woman. What? She asked. I laid out my plan. I already knew I wasn't going to try the truth with my grandmother, not after the fit she threw a few years prior when she found out I was coming out to friends. Again, this is laid out in painful detail in a prior episode, but she knew and liked Annie. I would tell her that Annie and I decided we just want to spend a Friday night hanging out. Dinner, movie, maybe the mall. In reality, Annie would pick me up at the house, drive me out to Taylor, where she and I would wait for Andrew at the Walmart parking lot. From there, Andrew and I would go out on our date, and he would drive me back as far as the driveway of my house, under the shroud and protection of total darkness. "Are you kidding? Of course," was her reply. "I'd love to help you out with that." Now, stranger danger was really prevalent in the burgeoning age of the internet, so Annie got all the identifying information Andrew gave me about himself just in case something went wrong. She would be there when Andrew showed up, and if the slightest thing was different, we'd speed away. The date was set for 2 weeks from that night. That way, Andrew and I would have more time to chat and add credence to the story that I gave my grandmother. In any other circumstance, lying to her would crush me. I've never been able, before then or since, to lie to her about certain things. At that time, I just couldn't risk another flip out over anything gay related. And in a strange way, I was relishing the idea of pulling this off. This was more or less the only amount of teen rebellion I would ever do in those years, and I kind of realized that even back then. So, as the days passed and we got nearer to date night, I got more and more excited just to be breaking rank, to be quote-unquote bad, and to have this slice of teenage life I was otherwise missing out on. So the big day finally arrived, and I dressed up for the occasion, well, as best I could. Blue jeans, because Texas, and a t-shirt with a button-down overshirt. I also added a spritz or two of cologne that was otherwise going totally unused. Annie showed up in her sedan, and my grandmother came out to greet her. Annie was perfect, of course, never letting on for a second that she was just a third party to a possible chance of love. I hurried past, gave my grandmother a hug, promised I'd have fun, and within a minute, Annie and I were heading out for Taylor. Annie did ask if fun, the word stretched out in a salacious tone, was planned for that night, and I truthfully responded, no. As a matter of fact, the only thing I was hoping to happen was simply to hold hands during the movie. No real thought was given to sexual contact. It was a Herculean effort which brought me to even having the date at all. I couldn't imagine anything going beyond just the scope of sitting through a movie with another boy. We reached the Walmart parking lot and waited for Andrew's vehicle, a white pickup truck. The folly of that, of course, was, again, this was Texas. Everyone had a goddamn white pickup truck. Thankfully, I thought to give Andrew a description of Annie's car, which was much easier to pick out, and after about 15 minutes, we saw him arrive. He stepped out. Good Lord. He was tall. Like, to give you some perspective, this was one of those pickups where you have to launch yourself up about 6 inches just to get to the step bar to get in. When he got out of the truck, his head barely sank from the height it was behind the wheel. He had glasses and short, neatly trimmed red hair. Really presentable, if I had thought I could present any boy to my grandmother. More pleasantries from Annie, a hug, and a reminder to call her if there was the slightest issue, and soon I was in Andrew's truck. The first thing I noticed was his souped-up bass system, and the second thing I noticed was that he was a tremendous fan of Eminem. The ride to the restaurant we were going to was about 40 minutes, and it had just started to rain, so that was going to make the drive a little bit longer. And 40 minutes of Eminem with vaulted bass levels was jarring, to say the least. So much so that when we finally got to the restaurant, I had unfortunately developed a headache. Why didn't I say anything about the volume? Well, chalk that up to first date jitters. So much effort brought me to this point, I didn't want to spoil it with anything negative. The restaurant we chose is called Texadelphia. They serve burgers with tortilla chips instead of fries. I got the Texas part of the name immediately, burgers. But Philadelphia? It flew past me then, and honestly, I still don't get it today. It's still good food, though. And that was the bulk of our conversation at the restaurant. I don't remember anything much other than what movie we might go see across the street. We finally settled on Insomnia. If you're not familiar with it, there's probably a reason. It was a Robin Williams movie in one of his rare dramatic turns where he plays a killer. Not the best first date type of material. He bought the tickets and our drinks. I thanked him. He returned the pleasantry. I don't really remember much of a smile around on his face. Again, this could have been nervousness on his part. I'm sure I was stiff and nervous up till then. In the theater, though, once the lights dimmed and the movie started, I felt like I was relaxing. The movie, heavy though the content was putting me at ease, and I decided to put my arm over the armrest between Andrew and myself. Maybe, just maybe, he'd notice and decide to try the hand-holding move himself. About 45 minutes in, my arm started aching from being prone in that position with no other movement. I gave myself 10 minutes to finish my drink to its last icy slurps, then reset my arm. And there it stayed until the lights went up again. Again, there wasn't much in the way of chit-chat as we got in the pickup, mostly because the M&M show was beginning its third course through the stereo system, and I just decided to listen to the lyrics. If anything, I can say this. I understood M's sense of humor through studying those lyrics more intently on that night. Fast forward to the long drive leading up to my house. Andrew put on his hazards as we pulled to the side and unlocked the doors. "Thanks for tonight," I said. "I really had a good time." He seemed to scoff a bit. "Yeah, right," he said. Well, up until this precise moment, I thought to myself. I remember being mad as I walked up to the porch and got out the keys and saw him drive off. Yeah, right? What a jerk. I was momentarily derailed from this thought process as my grandmother opened the secondary door to let me in. "So, how was the movie?" she asked. "Oh, it was all right," I said. I told her about what I remembered of insomnia. Since this was the only part of the night I could be truthful about, I spared no detail. I basically recounted the entire movie to her. Finally, we said our goodnights, and I went to my room to shower and head to bed. The annoyance of Andrew's parting words to me lingered in my head, but once the lights were out and I was able to lay back and think about everything, the anger disappeared. I had done what I had set out to do. I had gone on a date. An actual, honest-to-goodness date. With a boy. The way I was worried I'd never get to do so long as I sat in that school. With Annie's help, I was able to have a normal adolescent experience that every teenager deserves to have. Add to it that rebellion, the backdoor planning, another rite of teenage passage. And I honestly had a great night. Even if it didn't end with my hand being held the way I'd hoped, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. Except for maybe a few more opportunities. And now, a side note on theme songs. If I had a role model growing up in the late 90s, it was, strangely, Ally McBeal. The series about a neurotic and nearly psychotic single lawyer seems a weird choice, but to watch the show is to see how I dealt with some of the negative aspects and people in my life at the time. Ally had a rich fantasy world, which she'd dip into when things got a little rough. People too egotistical, she'd imagine their heads swelling until they popped. Bad date, we'd watch them be tossed into a trash truck as they were dumped. Overwhelmed, she'd be swimming in her office. I started to apply these fantasy sequences to my own life, and I have to say, it really helped me cope. And one of the other coping mechanisms I learned to use is the theme song. Early in the series, Ally's first therapist suggested a fast-tempo theme song to play in Ally's mind when things started to get too low. And I think that's great advice. We all have that go-to song, so why not take ownership of it? And now, in the hyper-digital age where everyone can have their own podcast, it's pretty cool to think that you can actually pay a very small licensing fee and actually have the rights to your own theme song. Like this one. It's called Tricks, and you can hear the full version on my YouTube channel. Reach out to me on Twitter. The show's account is WhatDoYouWantCast. That's the letter U, not the word. And my own handle is by Chase McP. Each week following the podcast release, I post a poll with options for the next episode, and I'm always listening for what you want me to talk about next. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Podbean or wherever it is you found me. Until next time, folks, I'm Chase McPherson. If someone scoffs at the end of your first date, and then a few days later asks if you want to go out again because you actually did have a good time, do what I did. Shut it in. Be well.
A production of D20NN Studios.